In a very ancient time, in the middle of a vast desert and desolate, lived a righteous prophet named Ibrahim. Prophet Ibrahim is a person who is obedient and full of faith in God. Every night, Abraham prayed with hope to God, begging to be given offspring who will continue their teachings. And finally, the prayer of Ibrahim was answered. In an old age, Sarah conceived and gave birth to a son, which they named the Ishak. According to God's promise, angels visit Ibrahim and Sarah, tell them that God has answered their prayers, and gave them a son. He will be the father of a great nation. Ishak grew up to be a righteous young man and obey, following in the footsteps of his father in worship of God. Ishak married a pious woman, and God blessed them with children, including a boy who is special. Jacob will be a great leader. In a small village in the middle of a fertile plain lived the prophet Ishak with his righteous wife. They live in peace and happiness under the protection of the most merciful God. One day good news came to Ishak and his wife. They are blessed with the grace of God, children who will be a blessing to them and their people. A few months later, in the middle of a silent night, heard the baby cry, who welcomed the arrival of a son. The newborn, they gave him the name Yaqub, and the little boy grew up to be a smart boy and pious under the love of both parents. Before he died, Ibrahim blessed Ishak and Yaqub, asking that they stay loyal to the teachings of God and made their descendants a people, chosen to spread the light, truth in the world, in a fertile land, and peaceful in a region called Canaan land. Live Bani Israil, promised descendants. They live in peace and prosperity, living the life that was colored by faith in their God and hope for a bright future. But things changed. The shadow of darkness begins to creep, threatening to swallow their lives. A great empire, who was ruled by a cruelty king, the Pharaoh sent soldiers to conquer the land of Canaan. Bani Israil was forced to be a slave in a foreign land, forced to work in the hot sun and cruel treatment. Their formerly peaceful and prosperous lives has turned into a struggle for survival. But between the darkness, there is a light of hope that appears, a promise that would come from their God. And in the midst of that darkness, God will send a prophet who would lead the Israel bands into the light, to freedom from the drab slavery. His name is Musa. He is God's chosen prophet. Sunset view in the Egyptian wilderness. In the middle of the wilderness, there is fertile land that is processed with bondage by the Bani Israil. They work hard in the hot sun, with sunlight showing fatigue. And they're suffering. Long ago, in the fertile land of Egypt, live Bani Israil, those who have lived in peace and prosperity, are now forced into slavery, under the grip of a cruel Pharaoh, the cruel ruler. Forcing Bani Israil to work without, they were forced to reflect on their changed circumstances, from landowners to oppressed people. In the dark of night between the valleys of the Nile, a baby that will be the savior of the Israel were born. His name is Musa, who will be the messenger of God to free an oppressed nation. In the meantime, Musa was born in a crucial time, growing up in the darkness of the Pharaoh's palace, though never forgetting his origin. In his heart, Musa felt the call, the deep to free his nation from slavery. He knew he had to stand before the Pharaoh and asked for freedom for the Bani Israil. And with a heart full of confidence, Musa finally appeared before the Pharaoh, the proud ruler, to demand freedom for the children of Israel. Will the Pharaoh listen to Moses, or will remain unjust and stubborn? In the middle of a dark night in Egypt, the wrath of God began to feel. Pharaoh, the cruel ruler, refused to free Bani Israil, despite having been given a warning. Pharaoh said, "I do not fear the threat of God or his prophet. I'm the Lord of this land, and there's the one who could have thwarted my decision." And God sent his first punishment. The Nile turned into flowing blood. Yet the Pharaoh's heart remained hard, and she didn't pay attention to the warning. Disaster after disaster swept the land of Egypt. From the grasshoppers raiding the fields, the sky turned dark and enveloped by flies, and stinging hail fell from the sky, damaging plants and Egyptian possessions. But the Pharaoh still insisted on hubris, and her rejection in fear and destruction. Pharaoh and his people realized the power of God that they were fighting. But there are many more tests waiting for them, because the Bani Israil trip towards freedom is not over. Before the vast Red Sea, Bani Israil stand with fear and deep concern. Behind them, heard the roar of the Pharaoh's army, which is approaching at high speed. But in the midst of their despair, God showed his tremendous power with his miracles. God opened a path in the middle of the deep sea, allows an Israel to walk on dry land at the bottom of the sea that they can't normally get past. In the meantime, behind them, Pharaoh's army stopped, shocked when they saw the magic that happened. Yet when the Pharaoh ordered them to pursue, they boldly jumped into the water, ignoring the danger that threatens. Bani Israil moving forward through the open track, through the water wall on both sides, with a stunned and grateful look. When the Bani Israil almost reached the other side, God commanded ocean water to go back to where it was, the safe Bani Israil on the other side. While behind them, viral troops and war chariots, they drowned in the water that again enveloped the sea. With dirty hands, Prophet Musa guided the Bani Israil through the Red Sea to the freedom they longed for. On the beach that is now safe, they feel the miracle that only God that is capable of creating in this moment. The light of freedom shines on every face, and prayers of gratitude filled the air. They celebrating their release from oppressive slavery and their new hope in their hearts. After coming out of Egypt, Bani Israil entered the barren field, and hard. They walked for days in the hot sun, looking for water and food, yet nothing they found around them, except for sand and rocks. Decades passed without any sign of hope. Bani Israil feel hopeless and lose Arai. But in their desperation, they keep praying to God to give them guidance and help. The night came, and Bani Israil pray under the sky that changes color to orange when the sun goes down. They plead with God to guide them. Through this trial, God heard the prayer of the Bani Israil and commanded the Prophet Musa to climb Mount Sinai. There, God will give the law as a guide for his people. Musa climbed the top of the mountain, where it communicates directly with God. Amidst the thunder of lightning and lightning, God gave the law to Musa as a guide for Bani Israil. With a heart full of gratitude, Musa came down from Mount Sinai with the Torah, the holy law of God. Bani Israil received the Torah with great excitement and promise to comply with every teaching contained therein. Despite many miracles, some among the Bani Israil continued to revolt and worship false God, ignoring God's instructions. God shows his greatness by sending punishment, like storms and lightning, as a warning for them to return to his. Yet, despite being convicted, they still continue to rebel and ignored his teachings. Finally, as the final punishment for their iniquity, God made the decision to punish the Israel. By traveling in the field of Tanduel over the years, in regret and repentance, Bani Israil realized his mistake and swore to be faithful to God, expect his grace and forgiveness. After a long journey in the Badlands, the children of Israel arrived at the border of Canaan land, the land promised by God. Prophet Yusuf led the Bani Israil in the conquest of Canaan lands. They faced various tribes and powerful cities, including the city of Jericho, which was surrounded by solid walls. With the guidance of God, Bani Israil used a sophisticated strategy. They walk around Jericho city once a day, for 6 days, while the priests carried the Ark of the Covenant before them. On the 7th day, when the priests blew the trumpet, everyone cheered and the walls of Jericho city collapsed. With magic, Bani Israil then conquered various cities, and other territories in the land of Canaan. With courage and their faith to God, they established bases in the cities that they controlled and began the process of rebuilding their country. In the land promised by God, after experiencing various trials and tests, Bani Israil finally reached the peak of their glory under the leadership of the Prophet Daud. Prophet Daud, a respected war hero, built magnificent cities and palaces, including the city of Daud, which is the center of its power. Son of the Prophet Daud, Suleiman was made king after he was known as a wise leader and rich in wisdom. One of the greatest achievements of the Prophet Suleiman was the building of a temple in Jerusalem as place of worship for his people. Under the reign of Prophet Daud and Prophet Suleiman, the Bani Israil enjoyed a golden age with peace, prosperity, and equitable justice because of the wisdom and splendor of his kingdom. Prophet Suleiman received visits from famous guests, including the Queen of Balkis from Sabah. But in the midst of all this glory, Prophet Daud and Prophet Suleiman never forgot to give thanks to God, who have given all blessings and glory to them. After the death of King Suleiman, the kingdom of Bani Israil had a dispute that culminated between the tribal leaders. This is the beginning of the division of the kingdom that would change the history of Bani Israil. Ambitious tribal leaders fighting for power and divided the kingdom. Tribes to the north make up the kingdom of Israel, while tribes in the south form the kingdom of Yehuda. Kingdom of Israel in the north was led by a leader who ambitious, while the kingdom of Yehuda in the southern remained loyal to the descendants of King Daud. Kingdom of Israel and the kingdoms of Yehuda fought each other for territory and power. This strife is bringing destruction and suffering for both kingdoms. Due to the dispute and prolonged competition, the two kingdoms were destroyed, and oppression from neighboring nations. Eventually, Bani Israil experienced disposal from the homeland. They were scattered all over the world as a result of the destruction of their kingdoms. When the power of Bani Israil starting to fade, powerful Assyrians came to conquer there. After being conquered by Assyria, many of the Bani Israil were exiled from their homeland and forced to live in the land of Assyria. Bani Israil living in difficult circumstances in Babel City, but they didn't lose hope. They maintained their beliefs and dreamed of returning to their homeland. At the right time, God sent the Persians to conquer Babylon, and in their glory, Israel was given the opportunity to return to their homeland. With joy and a burning hope, Bani Israil back to their homeland, ready to start over their lives under the protection and justice of God. After the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, Bani Israil were under Roman rule. Daily life Bani Israil, colored by the presence of Roman troops, who are watching them. Prophet Isa, a prophet venerated by Bani Israil, appeared at this time, even though it teaches peace and love. Prophet Isa caused controversy among Jewish religious leaders, and the Romans finally rejection by Jewish authorities, and betrayal by one of his students, leading to the arrest and crucifixion of the prophet Isa. The death of the prophet Isa brought about feelings of sadness and confusion among his followers, but the belief in his teachings remained strong among his people. After his disappearance, followers of the prophet Isa continue the mission to spread his teachings throughout the world. Bani Israil is spread all over the world in what's known as a diaspora. They fled the deadly Roman rule. But in a foreign land, they find the courage to hold on and rebuild their lives. They learn to adjust to a new culture while still maintaining their heritage. Diaspora Bani Israil also creates thinking and contributions who are brilliant in various fields like art, science, and technology. But behind all their achievements, there is a deep longing to go home, and with every generation, hope of the return to the land of Canaan continue to live in their hearts. And at the end of time, amidst the golden land of Canaan, Prophet Isa will come to lead humanity to justice and peace. Finally, under the guidance of the Prophet Isa, Bani Israil and the rest of humanity live together in eternal peace in the land of Canaan.